In other videos, I have advertised myself as a hater. I've always been a droid hater. I used to be a hater too. Welcome to a video about a man I don't like. I stand by this too, and I believe that there's nothing wrong with being a hater, so long as your hate is justified. The main thing I've talked about hating is droids. Specifically the ones that are used as a replacement for real writing in the movies. You wanna know which droids I do like though? Battle droids. The B1s are silly little guys that someone built out of Kinects and then placed a gun from like a different playset onto. B2s are great. They're like big lumps of coal with faces that spent most of their high school years bulking. Tactical droids and super tactical droids, following the Nintendo naming conventions, were almost like real dudes. But like, if a real dude was also a radiator, there are a bunch of other battle droids, but we're gonna skip right to my favorite ones. The Droidicas. This strange, bug-like machine is at the top of my list, and I will tell you exactly why. The first reason is this scene from Star Wars Episode 2, where Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan fight them in the hallway. This scene is sick. Reason number 2 is LEGO Star Wars, and if you're around my age and you grew up with these games, you will absolutely relate to this. The LEGO games famously let you play as hundreds of different characters from the movies, but I only ever played as the Droidicas, once I unlocked them. You get to roll around and fire a crazy amount of lasers while blocking all of your enemies' attacks with your shield. That's good. The final reason is because look at them. What an absolutely killer design right there. 3 pointy legs so they can scuttle around like crabs, a weird face with a little anglerfish dangle in the middle, and a body that honestly reminds me of a xenomorph. Chef's kiss, S tier, peak robot design right there. Now, let's talk about something that is not my favorite. Something that is, in fact, a crime. The crime that Star Wars hunters committed when it brought one specific character into the game. Hello, my name is Winton, and today we're going to talk about SLINGSHOT. We're finally here, the very last character that you unlock in this MOBA that we've all been playing so much of. Star Wars Hunters. The very last one. Huh? They what? A new character every season? No, you said that my curse would be over when... Okay, forget that last thing I said. SLINGSHOT is character number 12. And the 4th tank hunter that you unlock in the roster. They are also my least favorite character. SLINGSHOT sits at the absolute bottom of my character list, with the least amount of games played and the lowest hunter level. Now, a little behind the scenes fact, I started this series because of my favorite game mode, Matchup Mix-Up. What a great way to introduce people to new characters, I thought, and then that thought was quickly followed by, wow, they do not give a about explaining this, do they? So, I figured I'd try to. Not only has this series, hopefully, taught other people how to play these characters better, it's also taught me how to play every single one of these characters as I do the research for these videos. The thing is, Matchup Mix-Up almost never gives me SLINGSHOT, and I've never played a match as them on purpose. Why? Well, that's because I hate SLINGSHOT. More specifically, I hate Dizzy. Who the f is Dizzy? Exactly. Let me explain something real quick. SLINGSHOT, like Wyntonic, is actually 2 separate characters. This gross little pig man, called an Ugnaught, is named Dizzy. This lovely droidica belongs to this stupid, wrinkly and it doesn't have a name. Together, they are SLINGSHOT. I don't like or understand this naming convention. Despite all of my feelings, I'm still gonna try to explain SLINGSHOT to you anyway. This one might be a bit silly, but stick with me as we travel some unknown terrain together. Real quick, I'm sure you're wondering, does Wynton actually feel this much disdain for a video game character, or are they just making this up for content? And I think that in order to illustrate my true feelings so that this really gets across, I have to tell you about how last week, my girlfriend walked in on me in the office, glaring at SLINGSHOT on my left monitor, with a blank Word document on my right monitor just titled, "I hate this fool." So take from that what you will. Let's move on. We'll start with SLINGSHOT's talent, Rollout. This is definitely a unique ability that only a Droideka could do, but I would still love to see any other character roll themselves up in a ball and sprint away Sonic style. Basically, Rollout is a passive speed boost that activates when SLINGSHOT walks more than a couple feet. After about 1 second of normal movement, the Droideka retracts its legs and begins to rotate the outer casing around itself. This makes it move faster, and while it does, any enemies it bumps into will get knocked out of the way and take about a quarter second of stun. This is a neat trick, but you can only do it when you're not using any of your other abilities. No shields or shooting in ball mode. This is helpful for getting into or out of a fight quickly, because SLINGSHOT's normal walking pace is slower than any other character in the game. While rolling around, they're also technically shorter, making their hitbox slightly smaller, but only as much as if they were taking off like some thick-soled Vans or something. Also, there's no extra defense when using this ability, so ranged hunters will still be able to get headshots in on you. Don't expect this to be your saving grace. Real quick, speaking of headshots, I need to address something. Let's look at literally any other character. See how the head is up here, and your best bet for getting in a critical headshot is to simply aim at the top quarter of the character model? That doesn't work against SLINGSHOT, but this fact actually makes it way easier to get headshots on them. See, when you want to get criticals against SLINGSHOT, you actually need to aim for Dizzy's head, which is in the exact center of the character. Let's do some highlighting. Aiming at the outer section is alright, but not your best bet. Aiming anywhere inside of there is better, because you're more guaranteed to get regular damage in. Aiming at the exact middle of the character is how you get headshots. What does this look like to you? A giant target? Yeah, that's what I thought. Fun fact related to that, the only reason that Dizzy exists is to give SLINGSHOT a way to take critical damage. Because Droidekas don't have heads, technically. And if they did, there would be no reason to add this not into the game. That's right, kids. Dizzy exists specifically to get shot in the head. What a life to lead. Next, let's look at the main weapons. There they are, one on each side of the Droideka. These are called twin blaster cannons, but for something called cannons, they sure are weak little guns. These things will only do 8 damage each, and the range on them is pretty bad. It doesn't take much distance at all for that 8 to drop to 7, and then all the way down to 4. To attempt to make up for this, the cannons will fire 2 shots at a time, one from each side. This doesn't guarantee that both shots will hit, but it does give you the chance to do 16 damage instead of just 8. SLINGSHOT can fire 24 bullets per clip, which is 12 pulls of the trigger, which adds up to be 192 damage before needing to reload. One thing to note about them is that as soon as you start firing, the reticle will expand, which will make it harder to hit enemies at range due to bullet spread, but easier to hit headshots at close range because you only need part of your enemy's head to be within that circle in order for the damage to be dealt. Okay, that's the simple stuff. Should we talk about the actual abilities now? The first one is the iconic one, the Unstable Shield. Personal note, the shield is actually extremely stable, and you could keep it active the entire game if you wanted to, so long as it doesn't run out of HP at any point. The word unstable probably refers to the fact that it explodes at the end, but the explosion seems to be an intended function, which by definition makes it stable. Anyway, this thing used to be stronger, but it got nerfed at the beginning of Season 2 and now starts with just 275 HP upon activation. This puts it lower than Chaos's shield, but higher than Sentinel's shield, which are at 300 and 250 shield HP respectively. While this is up, it adds to Slingshot's 325 Hunter HP, giving him 600 total HP at base level and 650 HP at max level. Not bad, to be honest. Remember though, having this up means that they can only move at crab leg speed. Crab leg. Like I said, the one thing that this shield does that the other Hunter's shields don't do is deal damage. This will happen once the thing takes enough damage and runs completely out of HP, but you can also pop the explosion early by just hitting the shield button again. Here's the thing. This only has a 4-meter explosion radius. This is great against melee fighters, especially the lightsaber wielders who can't block the damage, but if it gets taken out by a long-range hunter who isn't nearby, it's not gonna do anything. On top of that, it's only 40 to 50 damage, so don't expect the shield pop to be your ticket to the top of the elim charts. At max level, the shield explosion adds a knockback effect with 1600 KBF, but this is honestly even weaker than Diago's mine at base level, so again, not a great buff, especially considering the 10-second cooldown time. Okay, with the shield out of the way, we've got 2 offensive abilities to talk about. The first, like Rollout, is movement-based. This thing is called Trick Shot, and it's a great way to absolutely blast your ass across the map, or at least 23 to 25 meters of the map. A quick tap of the button and the droideka zooms off like a pinball fresh out of the launcher. Hold the button down for a second and a half, and you can add some extra distance and some extra damage. Quick note about this though, if you're looking at this chart and thinking that it adds that secondary number to that primary number, you're thinking about it wrong. This doesn't mean that you can do 150 damage at base level. It means that if you charge it, you can take that base level damage from 60 to 90 total. The main thing you're really ramping up here is the total distance traveled. You can tell that the charge is full once the lane turns yellow. Here's the thing. Much like Rollout, this ability adds no extra protection. The other downside? While you're charging it, you have to sit in place and wait for it to turn yellow. This makes you extra vulnerable. You can rotate left and right, but otherwise you're kind of just sitting and waiting for someone to shoot you. How do you use this well? The main thing I would recommend is to combo it with the explosion from the shield, because activating Trick Shot will cause the shield to pop right away. You can add the damage from the 2 things together, but even at max level, this is only gonna be 150 damage total. Couple of things to note here. The first of which is that there is a 6-second cooldown on Trick Shot. This isn't unbearably long, but it does mean that you can't use it whenever you want to, so timing is important here. Item 2 is that you won't be able to fire your cannons or use any of your other attacks while you're zooming, but if you hold down the shoot button, you will fire bullets the instant you pop out of the Trick Shot. Last bit, that pinball simile from earlier is more accurate than you'd think, because Slingshot will bounce off of walls as long as they have any movement left in the Trick Shot, and deal damage to anyone they hit after the bounce. Watch your angles out there, folks. Okay, on to the last ability now. We're gonna talk about Scatterboom, or Scatterbomb, depending on where you get your information. First of all, I want to make a quick complaint. What a surprise, right? Me needing to complain about something? Crazy. Now, I gotta say, the fact that this says that it fires rockets is misleading. In order for something to be a rocket, it would have to rocket forward, right? That's literally what rocket means. Instead, these bombs fall limply at Slingshot's feet, with barely 2 meters of distance traveled. It's more like they tripped and spilled the rockets out of their pocket on accident. That's pretty stupid. This ability is one of the reasons why I don't like Slingshot's build, because it feels like they were going to make a long-range character and then at the last second changed their minds and made him short-range. I'll come back to that later. Scatterboom spills out 8 little bombs, which explode in this strange quarter circle shape. Each explosion deals damage within the entirety of that area though, so as long as your enemies are anywhere within that shape, they'll be taking that damage. As you level up, the damage will increase from 15 to 17 per rocket, and the time it takes to fire each individual rocket will decrease from 1/10 of a second to 6/100ths of a second. Those are weird numbers. What do they mean? Well, it means that at base level, you'll be able to do 120 damage in about 8/10ths of a second, while at max level, you'll be able to do 136 damage in just under 1/2 of a second. Again, those are really weird numbers. Keep in mind your 7-second cooldown on this move, as well as the fact that you can move around like a little bit while you fire them. Surprise, surprise. I have another complaint. I feel like you should be able to fire your laser cannons while you're firing the Scatterboom. I mean, come on, they're literally different guns, in order to supplement the weird range and damage. But no, gotta wait for your explosive dribble to be over first. Okay. We are getting down to the end of the line here, so we're gonna finally talk about the ultimate. This is called Rocket Stomp, and like Wyntoni's surprise talent, the exclamation point is part of the name. If you've ever played against Slingshot, or just been on the Star Wars Hunters subreddit, you know exactly what this is and what it does. My favorite part of the ultimate is when it does this. And I think that's pretty funny. What it's supposed to do, however, is this. This is less funny, but more effective. I have to address the fact that the description of the move says that it slows enemies, because it doesn't do that. What it does do, and I think a lot of people, including the devs apparently, get these things confused, is it launches people. When a hunter gets launched, they spend an amount of time in the air, and they don't have any control over their aerial movement, so it sort of feels like a slow effect. Hunters with a movement focus can still zip or leap or dodge out of this while in mid-air, but everyone else is just gonna get juggled for a second. Here's the thing. You don't take damage from getting juggled. What you take damage from is the short vertical hitbox of this move as it impacts the ground. This reaches slightly off of ground level, so it guarantees that any hunter that gets launched is going to take that 80 damage, even if they're not specifically touching the ground at the exact same moment that Slingshot does. This is 80 per hit, by the way, and the entire ultimate is 8 stomps, at which point Slingshot will have dealt 640 damage. Which is enough to eliminate anybody. What you need to know here is 2 things. 1, this is one of the easiest ultimates to get eliminated during. I mean, Slingshot is still just a big target, it's just moving up and down a little bit. Any ranged hunter that doesn't get caught in the stomp will have no problem taking Slingshot out from a distance. The second thing to know here is your counter to that problem, as you can actually use the ultimate while your shield is active and it won't cause it to explode. This guarantees you some mild protection, or at least until your enemies pop that bubble. Wow, did that take a minute, huh? Here's the part where I talk about strategy. But again, I don't really play Slingshot or like them, so I'm just gonna leave you with a couple of bullet points. Get up close and personal. Slingshot has absolutely no ranged capabilities. Because of this, there's no point in trying to use the tank to take out an Imara or a Diago or a Nox that's sitting up in a perch. Stick to ground level, and make sure you stay close to your enemies so you don't miss the shield or Scatterboom explosions. Number 2. Go for the surprise attack. One of the hidden strengths here is that you can get up close and personal a lot faster than you'd think you'd be able to with this big lumbering idiot. Use Rollout to get within range so you can activate Trick Shot, then activate the shield and fire Scatterboom as soon as you're close enough. You can do all of this relatively quickly. Once the Trick Shot is ready again, use it to plow into someone nearby so that you can hit them with the damage from that and the shield at the same time. Number 3, remember to crowd control. Slingshot can't defend themselves against a far-away enemy, but what it can do is concentrate a bunch of damage in one place. Scatterboom, Unstable Shield, and Rocket Stomp are all capable of hitting multiple enemies at once, so if you've got a crowd of enemies gathered, combo these moves together to take them out. And then my last piece of advice is honestly a disclaimer. I know that I make it seem like Slingshot is bad, but I think that that's really just because I don't like them personally. I've absolutely seen successful Slingshots in higher tiers, and you can be one, like they say. Practice makes perfect, so just keep trying with Slingshot until you've got them down, and I have no doubt that you'll be able to hold your own. That's it for this one. I will be uploading a version to Patreon, which will be uncensored and longer because it'll include more complaints. Like, way more complaints. That's worth $5 a month, right? For this video, I think I'm gonna throw it to you, the audience, and ask you to put in your favorite Slingshot tips and tricks down in the comments. What have I missed? What do you feel the need to angrily correct me on? Whatever it is, just pour it all out in the comments. After that, make sure to like and subscribe, and hey, tell a friend about me too. I'll see you out there in the arena, but you better believe it won't be a Slingshot, or at least not if I can help it. So long, Hunters fans.